Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Seed Talk podcast. We have a great guest on with us today that we're excited to get into and jump into the ventures and really highlight a different aspect that you've seen, that you're looking to see from this guest. And most notably, everybody knows him from the NFL because he's an NFL legend, terrorizing quarterbacks, terrorizing offenses for numerous seasons, a three-time Pro Bowler. We have Shawne Merriman joining us today. We're really excited, but what you're going to hear today is a different conversation. Everybody's known Shawne Merriman, the athlete, but today you're going to see Shawne Merriman, the founder, the businessman, the entrepreneur, and what you can do as well if you're out there and listening as an athlete about making your next journey, your next step, because you can have a great career, but then also set yourself up for a second act to follow that's going to be tremendous. And so, Shawne Merriman, we are honored to have you on the pod as an NFL legend. So thank you. Welcome to the Seed Talk family.
Thank you, guys, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I want to start there because, to my brother's point, I mean, you were dominant, right? I forgot that you were defensive rookie of the year, almost 40 sacks in 3 seasons there. How have you taken like that aspect, Taylor? I know just kind of said we're going to talk a little bit of sports. We're going to talk business and technology. Take that where you were so great and you were able to streamline like whatever that was, that athletic ability. How have you taken that into the business world now as you get into these new ventures that you're working on?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, man, is especially when you get up to the NFL level, everybody's good, right? I mean, you got nobody that everybody's at elite status, and then you start talking about Pro Bowlers, you start talking about all pros, and you start talking about the offensive player and defensive player of the years. Like the elite level just goes up, but everybody's good, and so. Yeah. What separates the guys that are really good to the guys that are great, man, I think there's always mentality. It's always mentality. How you prepare, what you put into it, your work ethic, discipline, and that's when the levels start to increase when you're talking about the level of athlete, because everybody's so good in the NFL already. And so what I was able to do, man, is just that same approach that I had in preparation, same approach that I take, getting up in the morning, finding that excitement to get you up in the morning, get you out of bed, that same excitement of running out to 70,000 plus people and millions of people watching. So once you find out, like, and you find something that gets you going like that, you hit a home run. And the hardest part about a lot of us is finding that to make us feel that way, because it's a feeling that you can't really you can't feel. It's hard to feel. That's why a lot of guys struggle. That's why a lot of guys try to figure out. But once you find that thing to get you feeling like how you did running out that tunnel, 70,000 plus people, you won. That's what it is.
Yeah. It's a gladiator mentality when you get out there. So, like you said, you hit a home run. And for everybody that let's go for our younger crowd that listens. I would say before the gritty hit the emote, I would say landscape and spirit. This would have been the first emote that you would have seen out there, called the lights out dance. When you saw Shawne Merriman come around the corner, light up somebody next to you, you had lights on, lights off, but it's lights out here with the dance that you had. But you were able to parlay that and transfer that into a brand. And then with that brand, then you built the foundation of your fighting empire. So what was the spark there? What was the idea? Were you like, I had something organic come up, and then I'm going to transition it and just grow it and make it big? Because Lights Out was something before. I think it was a brand before the time of all the marketing that you have in social media.
What's crazy about that, man, is it caught on so much. Like, this is pre-social media. If I had social media back then, I mean, who knows how big it would have been, right? Because everything, people are seeing it in real time. But I think for me, I've always envisioned Lights Out being bigger than what I was. I envisioned Lights Out being a brand and a company and clothes and different things. But I was kind of the person that catapulted everything else. Right. So it had to start with me, but it had to be big enough where it was big enough to live on its own. And so I've already started to kind of plant those seeds of it being something much bigger to me, because as you know, man, like, you guys might have watched me, but you got the really younger guys who probably didn't, who might go back and see some YouTube videos, but they didn't get a chance to see me live. And so as a player, your name dies down in what you actually did on a football field, but what lives on is that brand.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always had that mentality that I want the brand to live a lot longer than me. I've always said that I wanted to be around there, 60 years from now, somebody come around saying lights out, and they might have remembered what I did on the football field, but it didn't matter because it's already been built enough where it can stand on its own.
Right.
And so my mentality was always that, but it had to start with me.
Yeah. Sterling,
Did that start?
Let me. I got it because I got to follow up on that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is on a side note, but who was or what was the I would say the most fun lights out moment on the field that you had, sack wise or just moment impactful game where you broke that dance out?
Why
I put you on the spot there.
So I think for me, man, there's nothing like playing on Sunday night, Monday Night Football. Like it's just not. You're the only show on. Mm-hmm. Ain't no flipping back and forth. There's no 6 other games to watch somewhere else. Like you are it.
Yep.
And I had one of the biggest games against the Raiders on Monday Night Football in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing I'll tell you, I love sacking Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, getting Ben Roethlisberger. I got them all, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're like, I wear that badge of honor of playing against those greats. But man, I had like 3 or 4 sacks on Monday Night Football, and it put me on such a platform of that dance become nationally and internationally known, dude. I remember going during the off seasons where I was in Germany and other places, and people were starting to watch football a little bit more, and they knew that damn dance. They knew it. I was like, I said, bro, this is crazy. It's crazy how much it caught on, but that's the power of playing on the platform like the NFL, Monday Night Football and ESPN, like seeing that, and then it being on all the sports talk shows after and showing highlights. And so it started there, but again, you have to start to plant the seed to do something later on after that, right? Because that dies down. You got to go and do it again. That dies down. So you have to start planting the seeds to grow without you having to continue on to do that, because you can't play football forever.
Yeah.
You can't be that guy on the field. So you have to start putting things in place where that brand lives on a lot longer than what I can do on a football field.
Yeah. And when did you kind of start thinking about that? And now that we were kind of talking off air that you're in these rooms, you're at these board meetings, like everyone wants you because you're the asset, right? You're the former NFL player. You're the legend. How do you think about that from a brand perspective as well, of like what you want to lend your name to, who you want to attach your name to, and what you kind of work on moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question, man, because everything, I think we all feel like we're Superman and we can do everything on ourselves, but the truth is you need a team, you need partners, you need support to build something massive. You have to bring in the right people. And so choosing to work with the right people is everything. And that's something that as a football player, you don't know yet until you start diving in it, right? You started to go. But, I had great advisors. I had great mentors, and I was able to kind of pick up the phone in certain aspects of licensing, right? Or certain aspects of tech. Dude, I wasn't a tech guy. I wasn't at all. I didn't know much about tech. I knew how to use it, but I didn't know how to build it. And so, with me, I started to align myself with people who are experts in the space and say, hey, this is what I want to do, right? This is where my mind is going. How do I do it? And so that is where everything really, really started at, by asking questions. You can't be afraid to ask questions at all, because that's the only way you get knowledgeable. And then once you find out that people are really good at it, you hire them.
Yeah.
You bring that's just
you surround yourself with a good team.
You surround yourself with a good team, and it's impossible to know everything. And so you got the ideas. I'm the creative mind behind everything that's being built, but you have to have the right people to implement those ideas.
Yeah. I mean, I think you had good foresight. Was it the love of MMA that put you in that direction? Because let's lay the journey out. Lights out, you start off with merchandising, you trademark, you go with that brand, and then you build off of that. So was it, MMA saying like, I just beat people down for some seasons. Let me at least get the thrill of that by looking at it. I mean, I don't know if you want to jump in at all into the ring, but what made the transition in MMA versus another sport or another lane?
Yeah, so I started training back in like the mid 2000s with Randy Couture and Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz, and I was doing it during the off season while I was playing, right? So I always had a love for combat sports in general, and I did it initially to help me out in football. I didn't think nothing of it. I just wanted to get better on my hands and stamina, endurance, and being able to be more nimble. And it did. I came out in 2006, led the league in sacks. I got really good with my hands. But when I retired, this is where it really started the ideas. When I retired, I went to the NFL Network. I was a part of when they first launched Good Morning Football, the football show on the NFL Network. So I was a part of that crew. So I was there for a couple of years, left, went to Fox Sports. I went to ESPN. I was at the WWE Network. So then I started to understand how TV works. Not just, in front of the camera, but also how production works. And then I got curious about the money. I got very curious about the money. And I'll tell you a story. I was on Fox Sports. I was shooting my show. I did The Herd a couple of days a week, and I was on Speak for Yourself. And then they would ask me, this is when DraftKings first launched. And they would ask me when I got off set, could I do a read for Fox Sports Southwest, which was Houston. I think it was Texas. And so I did the read, and then DraftKings was like, they'll pay me like $4 or $5 for like this minute and a half read. I don't know if it was that long. So I said, hold on. So if they could pay me, $4 or $5 for a minute and a half read, what are they making?
Exactly. If it's nothing to them to write that all, exactly.
That's what I'm saying. And so then I understood how advertising work and how, when these big companies and corporations, they pay, these TV networks for not only the talent, but also how many shows are watching. They're looking at CPMs, impressions, how many people are visiting the show, and then they spread out that money across all their, highest performing shows. Right. And so then I started asking questions. I started going to Eric Shanks, the president of Fox Sports. And like I said, I always had the ability to go to certain people and just kind of pick their brain about what goes on. And I was fortunate for them to give the information, because I'm gonna tell you, everybody don't want to give that information out. They don't want to help. And so I was always very thankful that they spent the time when I asked the question, hey, how does this work? Okay, when Pizza Hut or Toyota or one of the bigger companies, they give you $5, $10, $15, $20 million a year, how was that distributed across platforms? How did they look at it? And so I started to gather all this information up. And this was a long time before I launched Lights Out Extreme Fighting. I understood production, TV, distribution, advertising. And so I started to learn the business. And so I was ready to go when we launched Lights Out Extreme Fight. I knew exactly who's spending the money in which areas, what they were looking for. And I started to build, sales team, operations team. And then it kind of just grew from there.
Yeah, I think
what's that? And I know that you're a part of the AI driven advertising, right? Which is PTF Lab. What is one of the hardest things now, because there's so many things that we can all watch? Tonight is opening night for baseball, and it's on Netflix.
It's a fake opening night. Hold on. Can we say that opening day's tomorrow? I don't. It's too much.
But you know what I mean? Like, how have you, and one, obviously being a part of NFT Lab, but how have you kind of looked at that? How has the landscape kind of changed with so many things that we can kind of get into and watch? And to your point, how are you kind of looking at that from a business perspective?
Well, when I build things, I build it to solve problems. And, I saw that the advertising and the way people are advertising, networks included, how they were spending money and how they can grow incrementally, building different verticals. And so I said, well, virtual advertising is the number one thing to go, because a lot of these, especially the bigger networks, all the way down to the regionals, if you can give them something to sell, right? When you're selling locally, regionally, and then nationally, and then internationally, if you can solve those problems by implementing a solution, then you got a winner. Then you can play ball with anybody. And that was my mentality, is like, who can I play ball with? Because these are some big networks. I mean, if you see the Paramount and Warner Brothers deal, I mean, these are $100 billion deals, right?
Yeah.
And so, as big as they are, how can you help them monetize? How can you, grow different verticals where they can make more money on advertising and add a solution? And so that's all I do. I provide solutions to these bigger companies, networks, organizations. And as long as you can do that and make the money, they'll talk to you for sure. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I think you said two big things. One, preparation. And then, when you're prepared, and like you said, you learn the ins and outs, and then you were able to then take off once it came up, but then also seeing where the direction's going. Let's dive into the league a little bit. So it's what's for the fighters, from the fighter standpoint, what type of fighters do you guys it seems like there's a lot of opportunities that you're bringing in, and with that, it's a good product because one, you have a breadth of fighters that you're bringing in. So what is the main direction for a lot of the fighters? Is it, hey, we're giving a lot of opportunities to these undercards, and then you build your way up into the league, and then to get into the main card or the title fight. So just kind of give a little more insight there into the fighters world.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us is that we sent more fighters to the UFC last year than I think anybody in the country, just about or close to it. And in fact, our former heavyweight Tyrell Fortune just signed the UFC 2 weeks ago, and so we got another one there. And so we want to keep producing up and coming talent, right? There's so many fighters that look for opportunity. So a lot of people, when they get in this industry and they don't understand the industry, they think that you got to go out and compete with the UFC in order to be big. You don't.
Right.
What you have to do is create something that's not there, and that with fan engagement, different formats, different creativity, and build something that's not there. Maybe they might adopt it if they like it enough, right?
Yep.
And so my thing was to build something where we're not necessarily ever having to compete with the UFC. We can build our own community, our own fan base. And as long as we keep having a pipeline for the fighters to go to UFC, you're going to get the next up and coming top guys because they're looking at, those 10 guys just went to the UFC. I'm trying to go. Where do you go? You go fight it lights out. And so if you build that mentality, you're going to win a lot in this space. I just think the misconception is that you have to be as big as the UFC, or you got to compete with them. You can still be big, man. Like you can still have extreme amount of success by building your own and being different. And so for us, man, that was my only mentality. It's like we don't ever even think about competing with the UFC. They're so big. They're the 800-pound gorilla.
Yep.
How can we provide something that's not there to the audience? That's always my mindset when I'm approaching these things.
I think when you parallel that, you see, I know you see a lot of parallels like to the juggernaut of the NFL, and then everybody's been trying to create the league. And I think finally you've seen the blend of what you had from the spring league. I think they put the XFL and the UFL together. So like, how can we be, whether if it's feeding or just be a partner, and we're not necessarily competing. And I think that's a solid strategy because you're filling a gap, you're filling a void, but you're also providing a solid avenue for athletes to continue, but then also from the fan engagement as well, because you've seen that with the partnerships that you guys have with Fubo TV and so forth and so on, that you can get all your major platforms as well.
Yeah, man, and then too, let me tell you, content is content, right? If you can produce a 3 or 4 hour game or fight or whatever it may be, it's still valuable to these networks. So you may not be the NFL, you may not be the UFC, but if you got quality production, great fights, there's a home. There's a home for it. And as long as you got a home to be visible, everything else rises. Your credibility, your notoriety, sponsorships, everything goes up when you get visible. And that's why I keep kind of alluding to, we're not trying to compete with nobody. I don't think we even have to. I think that we have to keep being successful on our own, and not just us, anybody that's looking to do it. Just it's Coca-Cola's there, but there's plenty of people to drink Pepsi. And so you get what I'm saying. And so if you keep that mindset of growing and then growing inside your own community, you can be successful.
Yeah, and I was going to stay there too. Like, I feel like because you've been in front of the camera, behind the camera, is there something that you, let's say your younger self, right? What would you kind of tell your younger self about branding and that, like, to your point about the fighter you just kind of mentioned, there's so many opportunities for media and for personality-driven athletes, right? What do you kind of tell, to your point, some of the fighters that are coming up? What do you tell some of the NFL athletes that are trying to kind of figure out what they are from a branding perspective now?
And I just had this conversation with somebody. Your brand doesn't have to be mega or massive, right? You don't have to be like an all-pro or big name. Man, you can go back to your hometown and get on a local radio station and start to build a platform. And if you dominate your own backyard, you can have a massive amount of success. And I think that people overlook that. People think that, because I'm not a Pro Bowler, I don't have a big name, I can't be extremely successful. Man, you go back to your hometown or where you went to school at, and where you're known, because you still have a fan base. People still know who you are. You might have went to a big college or big university, and start to build from inside in. sometimes, you may have a quicker and bigger following locally and then start to expand to regional, start to expand these to national if it gets to that point.
Right.
But man, dominate your own backyard. You dominate your own backyard, man. You can, the success you can have would be endless.
Yeah. I'm curious how you feel about, I want to go back to TV and fan engagement, things that you just kind of talked about there. Do you feel like we're at a place now where people are going to start to get away, used to the Paramount deal that's coming across, right? Do you feel like fans are going to get tired of having to pay all of these fees to have all these streaming services? Or do you think that's going to continue? And how do you look at like meeting the fan kind of where they are?
Well, I just had something to come out the other day on Fox News. Basically, was talking about the fragmentation. What you're talking about is fragmentation, and I don't think that people will get tired of the fragmentation as far as having to look at this sport on Netflix, look at this sport on ESPN, look at this sport on CBS. Now, I do think they'll get tired of the fragmentation that. Maybe the Thursday night games are on Amazon. Saturday, they're talking about now adding an extra game and having a pre-Thanksgiving game, right? I think that fans can get a little tired of that. I mean, I think that the NFL is smart by at least testing them because you don't know. But I think the fragmentation is going to have to be consolidated or bundled at some point, and I don't know what that may look like. Especially the NFL rights deals is coming up, and they're going to be ridiculously expensive. Yeah. It's going to be massive. Look at the deal the UFC got, a 7-year, $7.7 billion deal from Paramount. So what do you think the NFL is going to get? Right. So fragmentation is going to have to be fixed with consolidation and bundling at some point. And I don't know what that looks like. Maybe it's, I'm still guessing that Twitter may get into live streaming games and pay for rights. Another thing that I think is going to come up, these streamers with these bigger platforms, they may bundle and put all their audiences together. Maybe the NFL goes and starts to buy them, and so in order to survive in this climate with these rights deals coming up, not just the NFL, but the NBA got a massive one. So I think the fragmentation could be a problem. And we're going to start seeing bundling, some kind of consolidation where they're packaging things together so people aren't looking at so many platforms to catch a game or a show.
I got this brilliant idea, like you said, with consolidation, because everything's cyclical, and we call it TV package. And let me tell you what I can do for $19.99. What we can do per month is put everything together, give you one remote, and with that remote, you can just follow through.
Yeah, but you sound like an infomercial, but man, that's what it's. Look, that's what it's gonna come to. It's gonna come to a bundling situation where you can get everything. I think you're going to start seeing networks here in the future working with each other where it's for the best of the audience and the best for the fans. Right. And I don't know what that looks like. I could be blindly guessing, but I'm just seeing the way things go. And I live this every day, that I think that at some point in time that's where it's headed.
Yeah. And I think when you get to an inflection point and you have that moment in the joint where there's stress and you could have a fracture, let's bring it back to, I would say, to the starting point for you. Was there a moment as you were building the brand, as you were building out the company and fighting, that there was that inflection point where I don't know if we're going to make it, and then now you're over the hurdle, and now you're here to be able to have these partnerships in advertising and do the things that you're able to do?
Dude, let me tell you, one of the first fights that we had when I had the company outright, and I was running the show, everything by myself, right? We almost didn't have a fight. The fight almost got canceled. The first one out the gate. And I remember getting a call at like 4:30 in the morning on a Thursday. The fight was on a Saturday. It was 4:30 in the morning on a Thursday, saying that 2 more fights fell out, and we had a problem with commission, and we were down to like 5 fights. And you need at least 5 fights in order to put on a show, right? And I actually reached out to my matchmaker at the time, and I said, how long would it take for me to get registered? Because we're going to have a fight, because I'll fight if we need to. Straight like that.
Yeah. Let me
I said, we having a fight, and we ain't canceling nothing.
Yeah.
I said, so if something else happened and we need 5 fights, and one of those 5 fights canceled, I'm getting in that cage. I'm throwing down. I was looking to see how fast I can get my physical and everything else. We're having that fight. But what that taught me was, and that, you start off like that. I mean, everything else is kind of water on the bridge, and you got your obstacles along the way. But it's really about having the right team and figuring out, because when you start off, I mean, everybody can do everything. They're so good at this and they're so good at that, and you start to go through it and see who's not good at what they do. And then you get those people out, then you get the right people in, you make sure that your team is tight. And because once that happens, you got experienced people, and then also people that care about what you're doing.
Right.
People have to know what you got on the line and what you put into it, because if not, it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, the fight didn't happen. Well, guess what? I got $60,000, $70,000 is gone. I got, now we canceling fights. Now you're hurting the brand. Now the fighters don't have confidence in a company. It's just a lot that comes with that. So people need to understand what you put into it.
Right.
And how you got here. And I think that's extremely important.
No, I mean, I totally agree. And when people feel like you care that much, they then start to care, right? If it's just a job for them, it feels like you get a different output there. I want to ask about you talked about DraftKings earlier, betting integrations that have come down. Obviously now we've got prediction markets that are kind of going back and forth in Congress. Where do you look at that in terms of what you're kind of building out, the betting integrations and the opportunity to maybe like have kind of the live aspect to what you're building?
You know what? Whether people like it or not, it's part of sports, and it always have been. Now it's just legal now, and you got to, go through the process. But there's a lot of stuff on my end as far as compliance. When you're talking about betting, things like that, we work with a company by the name of IC360. And what they had to do is we had to go through a long process of making sure that we're compliant with every aspect when it comes to betting. And so, for example, if you saw the UFC fighter who got in trouble for being involved in some betting or whatever, right? That was caught by that company IC360 that we also work with, because they noticed things were wrong. And there's teaching to the staff. And there's teaching to everybody involved. They monitor social media and the conversations. I mean, you got to be really compliant, right? Because the betting aspect is involved, and that's only going to intensify. It's not going away. It's only going to get bigger, right? Yeah. Because betting has always been a part of what sports is about. Yeah. Now, on the flip side of that, I think that there has to be some sort of governance, right? Guardrails, and make sure it's done right, because that can get wacky and get out of hand. But overall, man, again, we talk about fan engagement. I don't care what people say about betting, anything else. That betting will have you glued to a TV because you want to know what's going on. And that's when you have people that's involved in betting, whether it's DraftKings or FanDuel or any one of the other big boys, it's going to increase fan engagement.
Yeah, you see it. Especially, I want to say, like, the NFL has kind of cornered the market, because it started off really early prior to betting really integrating itself in. But when you started off with fantasy football, and then now you had, a lot of people like, I'm going to be this new GM for my team. But what it did is it made the league a lot more sticky and continued to spread its arms with the fan base. So what have you guys seen, especially from the consumption side, from the metrics that y'all are seeing? Because the number one demographic right now to grab is Gen Z, and how can we position them with a product that, one, they're going to consume and return to consuming? So what are you guys seeing there? And then obviously, like you talked about earlier, and utilizing AI to be sticky with the sponsors and your partnerships, is that another driving force as well, to be able to align yourself with the strong demographic as you guys are growing?
Yeah, I think Gen Z's biggest, I would say, upside of what we do is streaming.
Yeah.
Right. And being able to be a part of what we're doing. So what I actually did, and I came with the concept, and we ran a test on it, is we had a couple of streamers to be able to commentate through their own channels live through what we're doing. So we had a plug-in where they can plug into our the streaming platform we have with Lights Out Sports. So they can commentate over the fights that's happening. And so now you're bringing in their audience. And again, And some of these streamers had pretty big platforms. Even though we were doing the test run, they had massive platform. We saw the numbers. We saw what it could do.
Mhm.
Right.
And so when you go back, everything that we're doing now, especially when it comes to live sports, is fan engagement because it's the only thing
Mhm.
that people are going to tune in and won't miss. They're not going to record it and come back and watch it later on. Like live sports, people want to see it right away. And
Mhm.
so that's your biggest time to gain the biggest audience, because the traffic is just way different. Now we have some good replay people watching replays and things like that, but
Right.
everybody wants to see it live. And if you give them opportunity to be involved in
Right.
what you're doing, I mean, UFC's figured this thing out best. Look at any UFC fight and watch how many big podcasters and streamers and all this
Yeah.
stuff are there at
Yeah.
the fight. They
Yeah.
figured it out, and they the first. I think before any other sport, they figured it out first and how they were doing it by having the streamers and all these other outside influencers involved in what they were doing.
Yep. Let me ask you this quick question though. I've always been interested here. So I understand you have the different time frames, and obviously Vegas in structuring with promoters is the marquee place and being out in Nevada. So you have time frames of having fights that start your main title fight is going to be 12 o'clock at night. But is there any advantage to having or better advantage to having fights? I know you've seen I've seen another league that'll on one of the main networks that tries to do around 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. Is there a better benefit of being earlier, or is it, hey, if we have the good product, like the Field of Dreams, they're going to come. So, it doesn't matter on timing.
Yeah, no, for viewership, for sure. You don't want to be going up against the UFC, especially when they got a big fight. I mean, and we look at all of it. I mean, I remember one time we had a fight. I think it was the first week of May. I think you had Cinco de Mayo. You had the Kentucky Derby, and I think it was like the Lakers had playoff. It was like three things.
Yeah.
Dodgers too.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at the time slots. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. If we start now, right, we're probably we'll miss the Kentucky Derby, then we'll start right before the next game starts, and it'll just before the main card of UFC starts. So I'm looking at all of it.
Yep.
And so we strategically plan around that, and then you hope for the best because. Again, I don't have that big of an ego to say, well, I don't care who's on. We're gonna just go. Like we ain't, I'm smart, man. We're not doing that. I think that and so all of that is strategically set up way beforehand.
Yeah, no, I like that because it also then that leads into have you having streamers added in, and then the streamers that can hit their viewership platform whenever, because there's just a lot of these kids nowadays or millennials, you're just walking with your phone, you're like, I'll tap in. And then it's not, I need to grab my popcorn and really sit in front of the TV per se. So no, I like that strategy. And I think it definitely lends to the viewership growth that you guys have consistently gotten.
Yeah. I know we're close to the 30-minute mark here. So we'll, I got two founder kind of questions for you here. So to kind of round this out, first one, if a founder came to you tomorrow with a sports tech or kind of media company, what is the first question that you ask that founder?
What problem does it solve? That's always the first thing because, there's so much out here, right? And so the last thing you want to do is build something that's already existing and somebody that's bigger than you because they can corner the market anytime they want to.
Mm-hmm.
And they got the infrastructure to do what you're doing, but better.
Mm-hmm.
So when other founders or somebody's pitching the tech or doing anything like that, I'm like, okay, what problem does it solve for us, and how can we beneficial in the future? That's always my first question.
I love that. I agree. I think it's what are you trying to figure out here? Is there actual market for it? I feel like so many people are like, oh, I'm doing this AI thing, and you're like, I mean. There's a million things that are AI, right? So, last one here. I guess what's the biggest mistake, and what would you say to a lot of athletes out there, or advice to athletes, or especially ex-athletes that are kind of transitioning? What do you feel like is their biggest mistake as they go from being an athlete? We kind of said it earlier at the beginning, right? Your personality is tied to it. Your ethos is tied to it. And what kind of advice would you give to athletes kind of transitioning?
Don't do it on your own. Don't let somebody else who's already made those mistakes and go through already been through the process of what you're trying to do. Find out from them because they'll tell you, hey, I did this and I lost $500,000. I did this and I lost so go to them and live through their mistakes and don't try to figure it out on your own. Go spend time before you launch, build, do anything. Go spend some time. I don't care if you got to take a mentorship. if they allow you to be in the office or meetings or just, hey, can I come by a couple of days a week and just sit around and whatever. Before you even think about getting to whatever you want to do, go sit with the people who's already done it and either had success or failed in it, because you want to live through their mistakes and not your own.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that's a great way to kind of round us out here. Shawne Merriman, anything you want to pitch? Anything you want us to kind of get our fans to?
No, that's it, man. Just we got some announcements coming up, and I'm constantly hustling, man. You know what? I'm glad I have. I'm glad I got people around me to stop me. That's what I'm most thankful for that, because if nobody stopped me and like, yo, Shawne, that's crazy. All right. Like, think about this a little bit, because I'll be like, all right, that's crazy. Let's do it. Yeah. Right? Like that's always my mentality. You gotta have that mentality though when you're an entrepreneur. You gotta have that. You got to. And I think that another thing, I'll say this, and I hope that the listeners out there really take heed of this. Don't jump at things too fast. Right. Sit back on it, because I had to really teach myself not to do that, because I always want to go. Yeah. I always want to go. And so sit on it, beat it up first, beat whatever the idea is, whatever your business plan, play your own devil's advocate, beat it up any kind of way, be as negative about what can go wrong first, and just really, really dive in to the things that can happen. If those pros still outweigh the cons, then you got something good.
Yeah, no, I love that insight. And it kind of goes to the whole landscape right now that we're seeing from the college side of things with NIL, and a lot of people jumping because it's turned, like right now, like you said, to business. So you have to make that structured and sound decision for yourself. So no, I think that's very well said.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, man. Shawne Merriman, NFL legend. This is an honor for Taylor and I to have you on here, man. So thank you so much for being here.
Appreciate y'all, man. Thanks for having me on.